Kevin, do you want this other light on?
It's fine. All right, we are at Northeastern Clinton Central School, as you can see by that cougar poster behind us here. We have two folks. I'll let them introduce themselves, but we're going to be talking about more than just cougars here. For anybody watching from Shazy or Northern Adirondack or Plattsburgh High School or wherever, we will be talking about voting in general for the upcoming school budgets. Your name, sir?
Hello, I'm Robb, Garrand, Superintendent of Schools for Northeastern Clinton.
And?
Jennifer Brown, Business Manager for Northeastern Clinton.
And they're sitting more than 6 feet apart. We have to point that out. And they did have masks on when I walked into the room, and I got my mask over here too. So there are safety protocols, and we are trying to observe them. Before we get into the specifics of Northeastern Clinton Central School budget, because I've asked them to send it to me, I get the notice that Shazy sends out for their budgets on an annual basis. I don't get to vote, but I get their information. It says budget vote and election. All voting is by absentee ballot only, and if you're in any of these districts, today is what, May 29th, I believe.
I can't keep track of the days, Calvin.
Like most people, we've lost track of what day of the week it is. I'll look at my phone here and it says May 29th. So I know it's Friday. And the budget vote is going to be on June 9th. And that absentee ballot only. Deadline to return absentee ballot June 9th, no later than 5 p.m. So already I noticed that Northeastern, on my absentee ballot, it says the same information. If I'm mailing this to you, how am I going to know it's going to be here by 5 p.m. on June 9th?
Our newsletter, as we've shared, that's been the difficult part of this process, Calvin, and I will share with all community members. The purpose of not having, we always send budget newsletters as required to our families.
Right.
With the aggressiveness of the timeline of the executive order, as you know, we're supposed to hold our school budgets in May. And then we had our postcards to get out and other timelines to meet. And with time constraints, it just did not allow for that. So we sent our budget newsletter to all of our families and asked them to use social media and spread to additional, family spaces and wherever else it may be, because we definitely want to get that information out there. It's also on the main webpage. So if you go on www.nccscougar.org, the very first thing you will see is an opportunity to get to our budget newsletter and as far as other budget information. But with our families, I'll read from my newsletter. Eligible voters will be sent an absentee ballot and return address envelope, postage included, to conduct their vote. The absentee ballot and return envelope need to be filled out, signed, and mailed back to the return address to cast your vote for the 2020-2021 budget, community libraries, school bus purchase, and Board of Education members. The ballots need to be received no later than on June 9th at 5 p.m. We recommend mailing your ballot by June 2nd to allow ample time for delivery. As a reminder, you may not drop your ballot off at school. It must be mailed. And the reason why we sent that recommendation out, because that 1 week notice should give plenty of time, because anything coming in after 5 p.m. on June 9th will not be able to be counted.
So unlike normal absentee ballots where they have to be postmarked by such a date, and then I know the County Board of Elections, when they have absentee ballots, they wait a week or two to count the absentee
Correct.
ballots. This is an entirely different situation, and no matter what school district you're in, it's the same story. Now this year, for people watching this 40 years from now, wondering what happened way back here in 2020, because of the coronavirus, because of COVID-19, there is no in-person voting at the school budgets. So this is how it's being done, by absentee ballots only. So this June 9th date, since you can't bring it to school, is really
Correct.
a little confusing, I would say, for a lot of
Absolutely.
people out there that look at it.
Considering the standard practice has always been eligible voters come to school to place their vote, it is a very different procedure, obviously due to the pandemic, and making sure that the health and safety regulations, as outlined by Health Department, CDC, and other institutions, are just very, very clear on that expectation as we continue providing best practice. So that's why we just felt it was in our best interest to give that timeline of the June 2nd, so it allows people to know that, yes, it is going to take several days, and if you want your vote to count, please make sure don't wait till June 8th and expect it to be here June 9th prior to 5 p.m. Would also add, Calvin, that again about the newsletter, because that's always been very concerning to me, is this one-page document ballot that people sign their yes or no. For example, proposition number 1 is our school budget, and it actually has the overall operating budget. Well, usually that's accompanied by a newsletter. All districts have their newsletters available on their website, again, because of the time constraint that did not allow for us to be sending that in the appropriate time to have the vote. So I encourage any community member to visit their district website and tell others, because then you'll see a detailed information, not only the newsletter, but the budget presentation, as well as other budgetary documents on the portal.
Okay, and for people who don't have the internet, you've got somebody that isn't that internet handy, is this newsletter available at the school?
Absolutely. We will be more than willing to mail if somebody reached out to the district office, which district office contact is also in our newsletter. Be more than happy. I mean, any way we can accommodate families, we're here for them.
Okay, so if you got somebody that can't access the internet and needs to study this newsletter, it is available at the school during normal hours, 5 days a week. And
correct.
Yeah.
And I think the difficult thing I want to add, Calvin, is we have I have a very close group of colleagues, the 16 component districts that make up CVS region, and we meet at least 3 times a week virtually. And it's it's been an area that we've been working and really relying on each other. Going by the song "Lean on Me," but that's what's gotten through this, because there's been a lot of new information from the executive order, a lot of fast information, and a lot of times doesn't always come with the greatest guidelines or information on how to conduct business. But we've been very, very consistent in our practice as outlined by the executive order. We also work with Dr. Davey, who facilitates obviously our region. So we're very, very consistent in our practice and really rely and have good conversations of how we're all helping out and everybody willing to help out each other's community.
Now, this is the envelope I received in the mail. Is it pretty much standard? Is this
Yes.
if people in Shazy and
Yes.
Plattsburgh and Peru
You
and
should have a
Northern
return.
Adirondack will have the same
Yes.
envelope?
And in the envelope that was mailed to everybody's home address, there should be inside. It should be the ballot as well as return envelope address, prepaid stamp back to return to their districts.
Okay, and it says to sign it.
If you do not sign, it's not eligible to be counted.
Where do you sign?
So you would see on your return,
I got a date.
date of vote, name of voter, residence, city of town. So you have that, which
It's on the bottom.
right here, if you go over here, signature,
On the back. Okay, hidden in the back.
correct.
So the only way it's going to count
Date and signature.
is if you go to the back of the envelope and date and signature there. So there's where you sign it. Now, so we also put in the information on the front here. It says date of vote on the front also. We can also put it there, but the important one is in the back here. Okay, now the question becomes secret ballot. There's my name, there's my signature, there's my ballot. Jennifer's
Wait.
going to answer that question. It
Did you say,
doesn't
where's
sound.
my ballot?
No, that's there's my ballot. There's my
Okay.
signature. Where is my secret ballot? Jennifer raised her hand, so she's got the answer to that.
Yes.
Yes. There are procedures in place when the ballot comes in. The reason the name is on the front is so that we can check it against the ballot books to make sure that they're a registered voter. Once it's checked to make sure you're a registered voter, they'll be taken out of the envelope. The envelope will be discarded without opening it. The ballot will then be placed in a ballot box, and that's what will be open the night of the election, will be the ballot without the envelope. So that ballot will not be unfolded until the night of the count, and the envelope will be discarded prior to.
Okay, so people who are worried about
Correct.
the secret ballot,
Correct. There are procedures in place so that there is no seeing who voted how.
all right, we can check Robb's though, can't we? Okay, so that's pretty much, I think, the generalization questions. I think we can get into specifics here, unless you think there's more generalized questions that the people in other school districts would be interested in hearing.
I guess I would prioritize some of my highly important statements again of superintendents are trying to be as transparent and coherent as possible to what has been given to us in terms of guidance, to make sure again that everybody had an envelope and inside it is a ballot to vote, as well as a prepaid return envelope. Again, needs to be received prior to June 9th at 5 p.m. And visit your district webpage, because I think that's again one of the highlighted concerns is annually we send to each household what our newsletter looks like, and again, due to the situation and the time frame, that was unable to happen. So we all want to just make sure that we can push as much of the information out to all of our community members, especially those that may not have a connection to the school district in terms of a student or other loved one.
Okay, I'm going to shut the camera off briefly because I want to line up my copy of the budget presentation while Rob goes over it. I want to be able to show visually what he's talking about. So I want to make sure I'm lined up before we start doing that. Okay, this would be the presentation that would normally be done physically. Are you going to do a physical presentation, or are you inviting people to be watching this video, or what are we going to be doing with this?
We are not obviously
you can't
allowed
have people
to host a gathering as far as
right.
the people coming in for a meeting. So we send out, and I believe it's already been in the newspaper, that should somebody like to attend our virtual budget hearing, which is actually going to be the same exact thing we're doing here today.
Right.
There's a call-in number to our district clerk, and she would set them up to give feedback how they could join the virtual meeting on Monday. The good part about Calvin that's happening today, which Jennifer and myself are thankful for, is again what they would see at that budget hearing is identical and probably even more in depth today what we're doing than would take place on Monday, June 1st.
Okay, on June 1st, obviously people will be watching this after June 1st in addition to before June 1st, but on June 1st, when they have the call-in, will they be able to ask questions, or is it just...
There's a first 5-minute period opportunity, then after that it goes right into the budget hearing.
Okay. Okay, so alrighty, start us off, Rob.
Okay, and just one other thing I'd like to add to that, Calvin, with yourself being kind enough of reaching out, and after this budget hearing kind of conversation we're having today, is our posting from what we're working with you in the interview today will also be posted to our website for families
right.
in regards to our budget hearing. So our 2020-2021 school year budget to propose to our taxpayers. We have an increase in our real property tax, or our tax levy, of 1.95%. It shows what it generates of a little over $218,000 in revenue. It does not exceed the estimated tax cap of 2.65%. 50% or more of the voters must approve the budget. Again, our tax cap limit was 2.65% that we could have gone out with an increase in the real property tax to our taxpayers. We felt with the situations at hand, and knowing that families are definitely struggling in the midst of the pandemic, we definitely wanted to understand their audience, knowing we still have to keep programs going for our students. We'll talk about staffing at a later time, but we definitely wanted to go out with a number that we felt was manageable and fiscally responsible to our community. The difference of us not going out at 2.65% is a difference of $78,000 that we'll not be collecting. But again, at this time, moving forward, we felt this, on behalf of the Board of Education, we felt that this was the best fiscally responsible as we examined and scrutinized our needs of our revenues and expenditures, that we could go forward with our community. This one I also wanted to share, this is the end of the property tax relief credit. If you remember that anything time you stayed underneath your tax cap in the fall to help out with property taxes, residents were given a small check. Again, that has been phased out.
So this won't apply this year?
This will not apply.
Okay. Now, just in generalization, with the moving target you guys have had to work with here, must have been probably your most challenging budget of all times, because even as we're speaking here right now, on May 29th, today, several counties, including Clinton County, were supposed to have gone into phase 2, and last night, late last evening, early evening, the governor, without anybody being aware of it, changed all that. So you've constantly had similar moving targets all the time. You learn one thing today, then 2 days from now,
correct,
it's another reality.
And that's one of the things I want to add. If if residents and community members visit our www.nccscougar.org, not in addition to that where the budget newsletter will pop up, we also have a coronavirus page, which is on our main webpage, and we have about 12 to 13 between letters and updates and myself. We're really trying to be as coherent and again as transparent with our community from day one. We've had a lot of good community feedback and support and appreciation for as much as we are connecting now with them. But I used to start off by saying we're getting new information daily, and now I use the frame hourly because it is changing that often. When Jennifer and I and the Board of Education were examining the budget, at first we were going to go out to the community with the same number in our tax levy increase of 2.49 as we did last year. And we just really said, you know what, we got to pull back this even more to see what we can do and where we can cross out from one area to so on, because we do know the unemployment numbers. We do know what areas are going. So we wanted to make sure that we worked hard to get this under the 2%.
You know, and budgets are just going to be under fire. Right now, every month when we have a county legislative meeting, the figures are updated, and of course they're a month or two behind as far as sales tax money. It doesn't impact the school budgets, but the towns, every town and every village. So that money has got to come from somewhere. Correct. So all of a sudden, all this sales tax money that we're not generating. Correct. So having a school tax budget that doesn't jump out of line is a good start, I think, for what people have in the upcoming year or so ahead as far as taxes go. All right.
Okay, the next page, it shows the what happens with the 1.95% tax rate increase over onto the assessments. So there's a history of tax rates. We're estimating the tax rate next year will be $20.86. That's using the tentative assessment rates that we received from the county for the 2021 school year, which was an increase of just over $3 million in assessment. That number will vary slightly by anyone who challenges their assessment, but using those numbers, we anticipate the tax rate to go from up 28 cents per thousand. So the next schedule you'll see shows the impact of that 28 cents per thousand and the impact of your taxable assessment at different values.
So 100,000 is something that people can use to generalize, because if you have a 200,000 property, you can double it or whatever. If you have 150,000 property, you know, you 1.5 times, so $28 a thousand, no, $28 extra for 100,000 tax.
Right, and that's
assessment.
The taxable amount. So if you have $100,000 would actually be an assessment of $130,000. So that's the first
because of a star.
Because of the star. So that's after star. So that's the taxable amount.
Thank God for George Pataki and the STAR program. I think a lot of budgets would have failed over the years without that.
On the next page, we're going to have two versions of the revenue status. One with the capital project from the BOCES last year and one without, just so you can see the budget increase without that extra $2 million that I'll explain in the next one. But if budgets had stayed the same and the $2 million wasn't used, our budget increase this year is $147,000, which is just shy of 0.5%. The only real change is the 1.95% increase in the tax levy. We're using $100,000 less of fund balance. We have a pilot program that's going on for a solar panel project. We have some additional interest earnings. And the miscellaneous income from the state goes down, which will be explained in another slide. But that is a reduction of the pandemic adjustment, which decreases the amount of state aid that we got over last year, that we're getting over last year. And then the EBLA reserve is money that's used to pay out for retirements.
All right, we mentioned pandemic. Let me ask this question. I know I've saved gas because save money on my gas because first of all I'm not driving as much, and secondly the gas prices have gone down. Are there places that the school has saved money in the last 2 months? That'll be a total of 3 months by the time we get to June. Obviously the buses aren't running as much, so that should be some kind of a savings. Are there any other spots? I know teachers are being paid, staff is pretty much being paid, including the bus drivers. I think they're still
We've definitely pulled back on some materials and supplies for general operating budgets. Obviously, our lights, the heating. Even in March, we closed down to only centralized spaces that were open. The bus aid, obviously, we still send out for some meals, and we're still looking at the transportation aid piece on that area. Jennifer, anything else you have to?
Yeah, the majority of your budget is made up of contractual salaries and benefits, which are all still being paid.
Right.
So you will see those small savings on fuel and electricity for the 2.5 months, 3 months that we would be running, and some slight materials and supplies. But a majority of our budget's still going out in payroll and benefits. You'll see some small reductions in, say, substitutes that we're not paying that we may pay over those couple of months. But we do see an increase in the amount of cleaning supplies we have to purchase, the amount of PPE that we have to purchase. So we do have that money now going out that we wouldn't typically be spending. So there'll be some savings, but I think
Going in other areas.
right, it's going in other areas, so there's not as much savings as people might suspect that there is.
There's been a lot of shifting, just to echo what Jennifer's saying. So yes, in March, April, May, we don't have substitute teacher cost, because obviously they're working to remote instruction with their classroom teachers. However, with all the reopening phases in the plan and planning for September, with our guidances, we have so many other things that are going to be going into outside costs that are not planned for and budgeted to when we get further guidelines. Here are your reopening plans. There's going to be a lot of things that we are, from temperature checks and
Right.
masks,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Right.
there's going to be a lot of outside costs, and some that we don't even anticipate yet.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, so it's very, like I said, it's very tough to budget at all
Correct.
without
Right.
knowing what you're going to have for the future. Are you going to get into this decrease here? The
Yes.
$296,000 decrease.
Yep, on another, it'll be an
I would-
individual slide.
I find that very interesting that at a time when we might have an increase in
Right.
expenditures because of things that we have to do all of a sudden, that the state is giving us $296,000 less without any cost of living increase.
And that's the best.
Okay, so you'll be covering that?
Yes.
Okay.
So the next slide is the identical slide to the prior one. This just shows with the $2 million payment that we paid out last year. So if you're comparing, the first one was comparing apples to apples. You're comparing it without that BOCES payment. This shows the budget with that BOCES payment. So you'll see that with the BOCES payment, once you remove that, our actual budget goes down 5.5% by that $1.8 million. And the only difference is we're not making that $2 million BOCES payment this year.
And we're not making that BOCES payment because?
Because we've paid it off. We paid $800,000 last year, and we paid the remainder this year. So our obligation to the BOCES project is complete.
Okay.
And if we remember from speaking last year, we wanted to make sure that payment was done before going into our capital project.
You expect I remember something from last year? Oh, you've mentioned capital project. You want to talk about capital project?
Our capital project, as of now, is actually very good news. We haven't had a lot of good news lately, and everything's expected as on time. Our architects and engineers are working with staffing areas that are going to be disrupted in terms of planning and designing. If we were going to be having a project that was going to be scheduled to begin this summer, we may be having a different conversation right now. But knowing that we are anticipating, the May of 2021, we're still on as scheduled. The other area would be, I guess I'm waving my magic wand. I don't have anything to say that, but knowing that how people are struggling right now and assistance coming from state and federal governments, and how we're ever going to get, the money in the future, and how we return to some sense of normalcy with budgeting. We received the 85% as I share with our building project. I don't foresee future projects being at 85% state aid. And matter of fact, now because of the area that we're in, not only because we passed our bond, so basically our vote that we already conducted, it basically solidified us moving forward. I think now you're going to see building projects show us your roof is falling down. your track that is not deemed appropriate for competition may sit and have more gravel and stones going. So I think we were very fortunate to get in when we did, because I don't think you're going to see projects and aid payments going out to districts and for assistance with future capital projects. I think it's going to be the dire needs of your building is falling apart is what's going to show for future work.
For the foreseeable future. I mean,
Correct.
that eventually will hopefully evolve, but
Correct.
but
So we're very,
Yeah.
very excited in all intentions and plans to move forward with that. That's one area going through this too that I'll give echoes to my colleague working with Jennifer closely and building administrative staff, because there are locations sometimes that have a capital project administrator. We are the capital project administrators, so we're very, very lean when it comes into administrative components and people picking up additional duties. But we're going to handle this task. We're not looking to go out to hire somebody to help us through this. That we're going to work to the grind and we're going to make it happen for our community, but it will be us. So if things go great, we're going to love it. If things go bad, it will be us.
okay, I can't wait to see Jennifer out there with a shovel.
Me either.
So that moves us to the pandemic adjustment, where Jennifer and I will both talk about. If you can see down below, that NCCS was given $365,329 for the pandemic adjustment. The problem with that area is that money was given on behalf of the governor if he reached his benchmarks in state revenue coming in. We all know the answer to that. So we had to build a budget without that number. Because there's look-back periods, we know that that's going to be taken. I think we're very confident that that money is going to be going back to the state because the benchmarks are not going to be reached. So we didn't want to build a budget to our community and so on and go, oh my goodness, and by the way, now, here's an area what we need. We anticipate that, so we did not build our budget with this $365,000. If we can keep it, great. We anticipate that we do not have opportunity to keep that because of the state not reaching their benchmarks. We'll pull that money back.
So this pandemic adjustment, Federal CARES Restoration Act, because it's funneled through the state, doesn't necessarily reach the individual school district, is what
Correct.
we're coming down to. So that's
Our federal stimulus aid, if anybody watches the governor's briefings, he continues to share that there could be a potential reduction of 20% in foundation aid. This is not in our present budget. We are hopeful that we're going to see the federal government providing assistance. We're hoping that money comes directly to our school districts from the federal government. But if the governor does and we do not get any federal assistance, and if the governor is sharing in his briefings 20% in foundation aid, that would be almost $2.5 million of additional reductions within our operating budget at Northeastern Clinton. So that is very concerning, Calvin, because we're operating very lean as it is. I do not know where 2.5, and I'll tell you 2.5 is going to be full guttings of many schools. So that is very, very concerning. And again, we are hopeful that we are going to have some assistance. We do have some phase level 2 and 3 areas that we do need to look at. But again, that's a number that's going to be very, very difficult to reach.
so hopefully this stimulus aid, as you just said, reemphasize it, will go directly to the school districts and not be funneled through at the state level where it can be
Used other ways, channeled other areas.
some people might say swiped, but I won't do that. I would never do that, but some people would.
So, with knowing where we're moving forward, we definitely know the task at hand to get to that 1.95%. And first and foremost, we looked at the staffing needs we had, and then we looked at retirements we had. And we said no opportunity that we're going to have to increase class sizes. Right now in our intermediate, class size cannot go over 30. And our intermediate levels, we have some grade levels that are 25, and your lower grade levels, again, that go to 23. Looking at attrition and so on was our very first move, and so we eliminated a 5th grade section. We say it's Moore's Elementary School, but the area is we also have a 5th grade retirement. Many years of service. Lisa Lambert's retiring this year in the district. Gave us many great years in our district. So looking at the numbers, we were able to collapse a section at Moore's Elementary and still maintain the integrity of the contract, so there'd be 2 classroom sizes of 24 students. So that's the elimination of a 5th grade section. We have elimination of a teaching aide position. We have an aide retiring, so we are going to look at how we channel and provide some shared opportunities to absorb that aide. Reduction of social studies, business education, and maintenance position. 3 individuals that I would be happy to share: Karen Jones, Rick Hunter, and Angel Sanchez. All again very valued longtime employees of the district are retiring. And what we're going to be doing is, I'll speak in terms of one that will represent, for example, business as well. We are going to be hiring a 40%. Anything after 50%, we have to cover an employee's health insurance. So therefore, all these attritions and positions move to 40%, the district will not be covering health insurance with these new hires. So now we have to do by increasing class size and going more towards the max. We are going to be using existing staff in grades 7 through 12 to help pick up the other sections of that social studies reduction.
Okay, let me ask this question. How can you find somebody who will work a 40% week? Is it sometimes retirees who might agree to come in and
we may have retirees that apply. The other area at this time, Calvin, the way I think that people are going to see, as I'm sharing our reductions here, every district across our area in New York State's going to have reductions. And unfortunately, there are going to be some quality teachers that I think are going to be in the line waiting for positions. Like we have a special ed position that was a face in a position that no longer we're going to have somebody who has done very well. So I do think you're going to see teachers I think you're going to see more in the applicant pool than we have in the past because of the cuts that are going to be surfacing across all district lines.
So even though it's only a 40% job,
I anticipate we're going to get
benefits,
some interviews.
You'll still have.
Yes, I definitely anticipate that we will be having some positions.
Okay.
And especially, I just want to share that this is the time right now, as we carefully scrutinize our expenditures and revenues coming in, that we're already committed to knowing that in this day and age, in this time where we're happening, that classroom sizes are going to increase basically to the max. That regardless, that I'm not putting forth a responsible budget if I'm going to say to us, well, because I look for an employee's health insurance of a new employee, then I'm not being truly fiscally responsible to our area, saying that if I'm telling people that we believe we can make it happen and committed, then that's what we got to stay committed to in terms of the hire. The maintenance custodial position is a retirement in December. We're just not looking to, we're going to shift kind of our existing staff. We're going to hire a 40%, and we'll shift the other components of that work with existing staff. To get us through that school year. The reduction of a special ed position, that is to be determined at this time because we're still doing in-review meetings of our identified students. So it could be very choppy and blending to where we're going. So as far as for me to say where it's going to be is too premature, but we do know that the bottom person, the least senior, will be the individual to lose their position. And they have been notified at this time. We have an IT gentleman who works on all of our BOCES initiatives. We're looking at taking 2 of our help staffing members that we network with and making it down to 1 member. And then you can see there's always increase in BOCES placements and costs. Special ed is a moving realm of depending on who you have that comes into what services they need.
Right.
Is very, very difficult to channel in terms of budgeting. You can see the minimum wage increase, health insurance increases, teacher retirement system increases, and retirement payouts. And obviously we have very old vans, 2 that have been deemed that should not even be on the road. So last year we had, so we're not going to ask for 3 new vans. We're just trying to cycle into the tiers for transportation as well. Please remember that transportation costs also come with 90% aid. So that's one thing I want to talk about. One of our bus propositions of $455,000. Our bus proposition really is at 90% aid. It would be a cost of $45,000 and some change. So I just want people to know that's not a true $455,000 that the district gets 90% aid on transportation.
Okay.
With that being said, school bus proposition, as I just shared, so the purchasing of 4 new buses. One of the areas that Calvin, we've been committed to is, next year we may be looking at 3, but we've been looking at a rotation of 4 because the more you take care of them and the more you keep the rotation going, it's really saving us in the long run for maintenance costs. And then with the excessive miles of the land that we covered, I was sharing with you earlier that administration, high school administration, myself, we made home deliveries to caps and gowns for all of our seniors, just to say a quick hello and proud of their accomplishments. And There's a lot of land area when you start covering near Allenburg up to Cannons Corners, and we make our way to North Hero, Vermont. In terms of, because when it comes to Vermont, I want to make very clear for people that don't, community members that may not understand, Alberg goes up to K through 8th grade. After 8th grade, they have school choice between whether they choose to go Northeastern Clinton. They pay tuition to us, as well as Missisquoi, because there's no high school choice for them. So the last thing we're going to do is, when we have students that have spent 4 years with us, say, by the way, because you're in Vermont, you come get your cap and gown. They are our students.
Thanks for the tuition.
Yes. So, going up, but we cover a lot of land, so we put a lot of miles on our bus.
Yeah, and we've had a lot of good students from Alberg and Ilamont
Absolutely.
and so on. And
Absolutely,
part of North Hero.
as we shared with each and every one of them, actually 3 of the students ended up in our top 10%. And it doesn't matter whether they're in the top 10% or not. Thank you for having your belief and trusting and staying with Northeastern Clinton for 4 years. School board candidate and propositions. So that's been a change also, Calvin, because typically in the past, candidates had to get signatures. Well, obviously with stay-at-home orders, you could not do that as well, and that was basically suspended on behalf of the governor's order. So it was on our main page of our website, and basically they had, and I can't because there's so many dates in my head between recognition ceremonies, I want to say it was May 11th. May 11th at a certain time. So that was on our webpage, main page. If anybody had interest in running for the board, they had to reach out to the board. So we have 2 seats, and there are 2 active members right now. Robb McDonough and Alan Cardian were the 2 that expressed interest. We did not get any other information from that main webpage. And again, with the timeline we had, I think we had 4 days to push that information out as far as voting procedures and election procedures. So that was and is on our main webpage. You see the propositions again for the 4 buses. The library support I wish to talk about. We've been giving $10,000 to each of our school libraries for about 10 years, and we figured it was time to give $500 more to help them with their costs.
That's Moores, Champlain, and Rouse's Point.
Correct. So that was a $1,500 cost added on to our budget, but again, we have not provided additional funding to them for almost 10 years. It has been a different year. We want to continue building our libraries. And the way we looked at that is, we don't know what schools will look like in September reopening phases. And if reopening phases come to centralized locations where libraries that have less people, then we're really wanting to look at channeling, because that may be some of the educational pieces as well as that families will have to connect with and network as far as the remote learning.
Okay, while we're talking about the board seats, I will point out on another little confusing thing on the ballot there is that it says Alan's name and Robb's name, and then it's vote for one of each, and there's a write-in, only one write-in spot. So looks like Alan's the only one who's going to get challenged for write-ins. Actually, if you've got 2 write-in names you want to put in there, you can put in 2 names.
Yes.
Yes.
So people have the opportunity to write in. They are the 2 members that are obviously seeking re-election, that have done their necessary channeling of work that they needed to do. And I would echo just 2 very valuable board members that have been very active through the process of the capital budget and creating budgets. So, but other people do have the opportunity to write in candidates if they feel they would wish to do so as well.
If anybody wants to get up there and work for nothing, especially in this this time with the COVID-19, more power to them. But it's great that both these guys decided to stay on board.
And the May 20th and June 1st, again, if you remember, I think it was May 15th was our original scheduled budget vote. So all of this was compacted by the executive order, like postcards, everything done within 3-week span. Because again, we have the vote June 9th. So June 1st, again, at 6 p.m., there will be a budget hearing. And I'm probably just going to share, Calvin, that's why I'm very thankful that you're willing to work with us on that, because I think this is going to be much more in-depth than even the June 1st. We're going over everything today. In terms of that, but they do have the opportunity to contact our district clerk should they wish to join that meeting as we review the budget.
By joining, you mean observe it, and you can ask a question early on.
The first 5 minutes, as a typical board meeting, we do allow people opportunities to ask questions, and then we're going to carry forth just as we've done with you today.
All right. So even though that vote says June 9th. That ain't really the vote, because you can't bring it in here on June 9th. You have to, the only way that your absentee ballot can get here is via mail. So, will you be mailing yours?
I will be following the same procedures and lead by example as I would expect the rest of the community to do.
Okay, I don't want you bringing yours in and not mailing it. So you have to mail it, and it has to be here by 5 p.m. on June 9th. So unlike most absentee ballots, when you can mail it in on that last date, you can't do that here. So the sooner you get that filled out and in the mail, the more assurance you'll have that it'll be here in a timely manner, because if it comes here on June 10th, it won't happen.
Calvin, I'd like to add, even though we're talking budget, but I would just like to talk about the greater scale of, this unprecedented time that we've all gone through. Is I can't thank the community enough, because what we understand is, as a district, that when I say life change is a flick of a switch, it changed for our families also in the flick of a switch. It was parents really having to be teachers now. While some may be unemployed, they have their own stressors and trying to maintain their own mental health and being at their best for their children during this time, which is very difficult. Kids losing connections and socialization with friends and students as we were making great initiatives and strides moving forward towards technology. Again, it changed in the blink of an eye of how we do things, how we deliver instruction, instructional strategies, and even the information we've been giving out to our families and trying to do our best to always think about families first and our students as our priority. Feedback has been extremely positive, very, very supportive, and this is bigger and greater than the budget. I just want to say, on behalf of representing the district and the Board of Education, all the staff, students, families, faculty that we serve, it's been pretty amazing. We appreciate this, and we really have lived with we're in this together. And anything we need at any time, our families to reach out as we've been committed. I've been able to have senior chats with all the seniors, inviting them to an area, just kind of guiding them up through the area prior to this, and remain committed. So if I'm more than happy, as long as you have the time to talk about, I think it's good to push some information about our recognition ceremonies now, if you have the time to do that.
Okay, just one last question on
Sure.
the budget before we do that. You might explain again here. It says we see a $33 million for the current budget that we're in, and $31 million for the proposed budget. It's a $2 million decrease, yet our tax rate is going up slightly.
Correct.
So we're spending less money, but that mainly it's the $2 million we spent to BOCES, I think, is the difference.
Correct.
But how did we manage to raise $33 million last year and only $31 million this year, and it cost us?
The $2 million difference was made up with the revenue that we get back on BOCES aid for the BOCES payment and use of fund balance. So those two numbers were used to make that $2 million
So
payment.
it balanced itself out.
Correct. So the increase actually goes, and that's why there were two versions of the revenue in the packet, one using that number and one not using that number, so you can see where the increases and the decreases came from.
Okay, very good. Now, let's get into the.
So I've been referring to, we get caught in standard of tradition of using the word graduation, and I've really been focused on using the term recognition ceremony, because we are committed, because there's only certain milestones, especially with all the stressors, the rigor of curriculum and testing and everything else that goes into a student's life, school life. There's important milestones that must be reached and achieved and celebrated. So we are committed to doing that. However, they're going to look very different, because people need to understand that we're representing people from different areas. We're representing people that want full-fledged graduations. We're representing people that have underlying conditions and health issues that is very, very concerning to them, to what a traditional graduation would look like. We have some that right now, again, that the $10 that they need on gas to transport their family to Champlain is the $10 they need right now, because they don't have the necessary income coming in. So the high school administrative team and myself have worked closely, and I like to always do it when I was teaching at the elementary level, as well as elementary principal, as well as teacher, and giving families choice. There's nothing students love as if you can achieve a lesson with an overall arching, what's the objective you want students to get out of the lesson, you can give multiple pathways for them to get there. You can give 2 assignments as long as it's achieving the same. So I really developed and tasked working with our high school team of let's do the same for our students and their families in terms of what this recognition ceremony is going to look like. Because we're going to be, from what I hear of the 16 component districts, we're going to be the first district to celebrate first. Some are, there's different angles of how people are taking it. Some are waiting, I believe, until July, maybe even August, if new information comes out with further lessening of guidelines. We're going to move forward. And right now we have strict guidelines. It's not the Northeastern Clinton guidelines, it's CDC guidelines and local health recommendations from our health departments. And we definitely need to adhere to that so we don't get people into uncomfortable situations, knowing that, again, first and foremost is always understanding our audience. The high school administration is going to be sending out a notice. I shared by robocall in an update last week that by May 29th we'd be communicating with our families. Not necessarily all the specific details, but we're doing so they can plan for dates. And we tasked to come up with 3 areas, and we're hoping that 3 areas of how we're carrying it forward will be accommodating to our families and then understanding that we're thinking about them first and foremost through this, while still underlying the overall achieving areas, which is recognizing seniors, that this is their culminating event of pre-K through 12, that they should be, and it's a proud moment for their parents of doing the great work that they've done in their raising for them. So it's as much a celebration for them. So our 3 options include option, and I may have my options out of order, but I'll tell you the clear option. Options 1 is June 23rd. We are going to be having a ceremony, and we'll be using our front parking lot. It would be as clear as students would come in. We're going to get the assistance and help from whether local law enforcement or village, firefighters, whatever it can be, to help us with the crowd control. We typically would have 1 graduation ceremony at Clinton. We obviously cannot do that. To maintain social distancing and masks, that's going to be first and foremost. We are going to adhere to everything that's required. We have our social gathering guidelines, and most if people come in for the ceremony, we're doing 3 different ceremonies. So we have 100, we're hoping that 105 students reach the stage. What we've done is we've broken into 3 separate celebrations by alphabet. But we do have, for example, if we do have a situation of, a stepbrother or sister that have 2 different last names, then we're going to work with those families. So what we try to do is take that area and break it down to about 30 to 35 kids per celebration. So we will have buses out here, and they will be decorated. We're going to have a stage area here, but parents will be assigned 1 vehicle, and in that vehicle is their immediate family. So whoever they put in that 1 vehicle, siblings, whatever, is going to be the vehicle with their graduate. So it would sound something like this. Family X, you're going to be going to parking space number 7. And we're going to have them identified, and each parking space is going to have a gap. So if I'm parking space number 7, there's not going to be anybody in parking spaces beside me until the next vehicle over. So every other area will be a parking spot. During that time, we're going to have a speech conducted by the high school principal, myself, the valedictorian, the salutatorian, and obviously a condensed manner. And what they'll do at that point is, unfortunately, with nothing more we love to do is shake their hands and take pictures of them, but due to guidelines, it's going to be their graduation certificate will be on a table. We're going to work again all the specifics out, but we've reduced our number by 1/3. So that ceremony will also be live streamed, or I should say recorded, and it will be up on our webpage for people to see that if they choose other options. Option 2 would be, if people are not comfortable with that, even that smaller group, we are going to have a date on June 18th from 3:30 to 7 p.m. I'm going to be working with our district administrative assistants next week that we're going to carry out that message. So a notice is going to go home to our senior families this afternoon so they see what that sheet looks like in their options. The district is going to follow up with phone calls next week in terms of what is your option. And what you choose is the option you choose and you stay with, because then we can't plan accordingly. Option 2 would be if somebody has that they don't feel as comfortable with that small gathering, we will still have an opportunity for a photo, a decorated bus, high school administration available, as well as counselors to present their diploma, 5-minute intervals of their own personal time that they can arrive between 3:30 and 7.
Again, in the front.
In the front. So we will book that time. Somebody may have, if 4 o'clock works for them, then 4 o'clock will be where that 1 vehicle comes in. They'll have their cap and gown on, administration will present, take a picture, and then they can be on their way. And then option 3 is for that family that may have difficult time to be, okay, I live in Cannons Corners, I live in North Hero, or whatever else it may be, because we serve a wide range of miles. If it is they're more wanting the less of the 25 or 30 with the ceremony, or have a difficult time reaching us by the one vehicle, or a vehicle's just broken down, we will go to them. So just like we delivered all the senior caps and gowns, they will have an option for option 3 that district administration will go to their doorstep and we will present to their student with their cap and gown on. And what we try to do through this, as always, Calvin, is understand their audience, understand our families, where they're coming from. And we're hoping within these 3 options that we can fulfill the milestone that should be achieved, as well as making sure that we're accommodating to our families. So if somebody chooses the ceremony, then we're expecting them to understand that there are going to be 25 possible cars out there. If they want the one-on-one, still come to school and take an outside picture in front of a sign, we're going to accommodate that too. That'll be their own time. Or if they want us to, because what's going to happen in the ceremony, grandparents aren't going to be able to attend, because then our gathering far exceeds what it should be into maintaining our health and safety. And I'm not taking at risk of our district.
As long as they can fit in the same car.
Correct. Correct. And we have some grandparents that are raising the kids. So I'm just simply saying is if there's extended members that go beyond that family member, we're not going to. That's why some, we believe, thinking option 3 may be something where grandma and grandpa may be at the house if we deliver that. So as always, is it perfect? No, but every decision we made has been in the best interest of our families and their students, to whatever condition or situation that they may be in, to help accommodate that. As far as kindergarten and 8th grade, building administration will work. So much more of my time has been spent on the big celebration, which is the senior ceremony. It's going to be more of a drive-in, I believe, but I don't want to get too much into specifics, because I definitely want to give the administrative opportunity to connect that with their families in terms of that information and how they're doing that. But I'm proud of what we're presenting, because we're taking everything in the health and safety concerns into consideration and giving everybody an option that I feel they can live with, and that I feel confident with us moving forward.
Right now we're in a situation where we're supposed to get a big downpour later on today, some storms. Well, we've gone a long time without much rain. I'm predicting that it's going to be raining like heck.
Yep.
on those dates that you pick.
And what we'll be doing at a later time, because there will be today's initial letters, just like here are the dates, here are the options, going to come out further notices. There will also be rain dates to inclement weather.
Okay.
Because under no circumstance will any of these issues or areas be canceled. It will happen one way or another.
Right. And
I think that shows our commitment. Just again, when I talk about delivering of senior caps and gowns to 105 households, we are that committed. We understand, because this is greater than just what the report card reads. This is a difficult time where we've asked families to really make changes in their lives, and we're very heartfelt on that, and we're trying to maintain that mental health situations, and we want people to be at the best of the game. We don't want this to be one more stressor. So if we have to accommodate and go to them, we are willing to do that. That's the oath we take as leaders in our districts, and I'm proud of our administrative staff, our faculty staff, our families, so on, because together I think we do a great job in representing all that Northeastern Clinton offers.
Now we're talking here on May 29th, and we're looking for the school year to end in about 4 weeks. But then comes Labor Day and September, and again we got that moving target, and we have no idea at this point what the school year will look like.
Correct.
In 2021.
I'm actually glad that you asked that question, Calvin. So when I share that we meet at least 3 times a week with my fellow colleagues, area superintendents, as well as Dr. Davey, our regional representative, we have a regional opening team, but we're also going to obviously have to make sure it works locally for us too. So we have guidelines, but you got to make sure your guidelines work for your local institutions that you represent. Very cohesive force that we're going to work closely together, but we'll also be identifying a Northeastern Clinton reopening task force team. So throughout the summer, at least once or twice a week, I'll be having individuals from all walks of life in terms of, it may even be to an area of making sure that we have a committee of about, sometimes if you have 40, there are too many opinions, so you may not get it all task accomplished, but we know it's a very serious time, and we want people to have voice and feedback. So we're in the process of, once our recognition ceremonies already in the last week of June, to carry that forward for the summer about the reopening plan. I'd love to be honest. I know everybody wants answers, but we ask the same question many times. We want answers. We want guidance. Obviously, looking at the science, every governor has their own plan. Governor Cuomo's on for briefings all the time, so we hear today could be something totally different tomorrow. And we're doing our best always with the information we have, with also protecting our students and our families. It could be school opens up in September, but looking very different. It may not be full population. My biggest issue, my hiccup that I get caught on is I really need further guidance of, we're in an area with covering as much land as we have, with parents that need to work to maintain social distancing. We can't fill buses. So to get kids to school, which families rely on, there's just a lot of specifics and not a lot of specific guidance to guide us to making those plans. But just wanting families to know that we're committed to making sure that we're working on it. We always have our kids' health and safety as our priority number one. But we all want answers now, and it's just those situations. I mean, we want answers now, and it's just you go with the best, but you have to keep planning. You can't stop planning and say wait for the guidance, because the guidance may not come to you.
Right.
But you're looking for feedback. But I can tell you it's going to be very collaborative in decisions about what our area schools are doing as well. You're not going to see it looking differently across the map. We work very well together, and we want a unified plan. But again, there will be tweaks according to what works best for our districts.
Hopefully we won't approach Labor Day and have the same situation like we had within the last 24 hours, where it was announced that phase 2 would start, and all of a sudden it's not. You can't announce school's going to start and then 2 days later say, nope, change our minds.
Absolutely.
We got to make a commitment and
Absolutely.
stick with it for a while.
And that's been one area that's caused a little bit of concern. For example, when the governor announced school closure till the end of the year, so you're listening to the briefing and you're pushing information out within the hour because you want to make sure your families are given this information. And there's nothing more disheartening because what families do is they look for their district to be their leaders, and we need the information from the governor in order to present that information to be as transparent as possible. And sometimes you get caught in the holding game, in the waiting game. But again, we do the best with what we have, and I can say that we've all, especially as a unit of superintendents and building administration and faculty sharing across district lines, it's really brought, there has been good things to this. I mean, I think our technology initiatives of what we're doing now, we have 3-year plans for, kind of thing. We are learning how to do things remote, but it still doesn't take away the social piece and, the connections that a lot of our staff have with students. And we've had kids on my senior chats that love the remote learning and others that are begging to be back.
Well, my thoughts on remote learning, again, I'm not going to keep picking on the governor here, but maybe a month ago he was talking to Bill Gates and said, oh, we're going to come up with some tech learning. It's going to be high. I think kids spend enough time on their tech, when they're looking at their iPhone or iPad. They need to get out
Correct.
and mingle with people. They
Correct.
don't need more
Correct.
time
Correct.
isolated like that in their
Correct.
tech world.
And the other area I would say about the reimagined education kind of piece, as we, we're getting more information now, but what I continue sharing in all this area about school reopenings, it's vital to make sure. It does not mean it needs to be all 16 of us, but it's vital to make sure that people that are living the work every day are part of that planning process. Not always having outsiders coming in and into areas and saying it's just like we have valuable voices to how our schools operate, and some very, very, a lot of people with a lot of experience that could give really good guidance within our own ranks and know our North Country best and so on, and just like they know all those factors and risk factors that take in place. So it's critical that we have educational members around that task force planning.
I learned many years ago when I was working at Sheridan Iron Works, Harris Graphics, the place your father worked for a while. The engineers would be up there designing a machine, but the guy who put it together on the floor that knew
Correct.
what was going on.
Correct.
So many times that man up there, that engineer, would go down to the floor
Correct.
where it was being assembled, and then redraw it, redesign it, because the guy doing the work knew
Correct.
what was needed.
Correct.
And that's
Hey.
the same way thing in anything.
And anxiety level across the board, right from our, even our faculty and staff with the mental health training, because everybody, you try to do your best, and it's such a change, a new one, and it's reaching students that may not be responding. we have a percentage of students that, aren't as engaged as they need to be. So we offer multiple areas too, hard packets, so paper copies, not just technology. We've gone to homes, we go to homes every week, in terms of that. And, that could be because, teachers have on their mind of, I'm responsible making sure that, that they're showing that they're learning and so on. So from that, and then the families, like I said, somebody's getting home at 5:36 p.m., they're sitting down with 2 or 3 kids to now support distance learning.
Yeah.
It's been a big stressor, and I think everybody wants school back to the way we know it. But we're also now, we aren't taking things for granted, to what we have and so on. But it's been a trying time, but it's brought people closer together, and I really can say at the end, all of us are coming together for the good of student learning. And the feedback, I went out to my vehicle the other day, and there were 3 or 4 of us that were obviously on site, and we miss you. And there was Cougar Pride, Cougar Strong signs. I mean, if you go on our website, there's a slideshow on behalf of our kids. And so it was just like, it's been pretty magical how the families have really worked. And I've had a few reach out saying, now I've learned exactly what all of you go through. And I don't want it. But
it's only with 2 or 3
yeah, but every active member, our support staff has helped with food preparation. And our bus drivers coming back for transportation. Helping out cleaners, because what happened is during the first 6 weeks, we had a very limited skeleton crew as all this was hot and heavy. There was real no plan. But as we're slowly bringing people, these are still people that were on the front lines, even our own front lines, not front lines essential workers, that are saving lives,
right,
that we give so much kudos for. And that's a big shout out to all of our families involved in that. If there's anything we can do, they can reach out to someone, because kudos to them putting themselves, in the area of making this a health and safety in terms of priority number 1 as well. But, all the support staff members just pulling forth whatever you need, whatever you want. People shampooing carpets, washing windows, whatever else to help the custodians out, throughout the summer. It's been a real magical team effort. And I'm very, very proud of who we represent.
Okay. Anything else, Jennifer? All right. We've been talking with Jennifer Brown and Robb Garrand. And our main focus has been the upcoming 2020 school budget vote. If you have not received this and you're an eligible voter, you can call the school and try to convince them you are, I guess. The date to get one of these, if you haven't gotten one, is what, June?
It should be receiving. Mine was received yesterday, so I'm within the next 2 or 3 days. But make sure, I would say June 2nd, send it back out so it's arrived here by June 9th.
Yeah, so if you haven't gotten one, contact the school and prove your voter eligibility, and you'll be getting one of these. But again, the date says on here June 9th, but don't let that be your guide, because it's going to be mailed and received by June 9th. So keep that in mind.
And Calvin, I would say in closing, I just want to echo again, I said it before, but I really want to compliment and thank you for offering your services, because the newsletter has been concerning to me, how we push, how many multiple modes of communication we can get out to our families. So knowing that this is going to be going up recently, and we're asking for people next week to vote, it's been a big help for families that may not be getting the newsletter via our email communications, because those go out to families that have kids here. So thank you for that.
All right, you're welcome. I'm going to sign off.